Is Kamala Harris a progressive? What's going on in the Middle East? What's happening in Venezuela? And other trending news. That's what we're going to talk about. And as always, you can join this show and chop it up. You just need to click the link in the comment section. So click the link to join. Let's go. Don't take my word for it. Look that mess up, please.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
An educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized. Learn to be active.
Looks like we got us another hit.
Did you tell her to get away from me? She's crazy.
Choose your destiny.
An educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized. Learn to be active. Investigate both sides of the argument. Come up with your own conclusions.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, an educated public cannot be controlled. Learn to be active. The views and events expressed here are not necessarily the views of anyone, and it may or may not be factually correct. Therefore, this has been produced for educational and or entertainment purposes. And don't take my word for it. Look that crap up. Podemos ayudarnos más si se puede. So, today, the name of the show today is System Falling Apart. And, you know, I'm looking across the headlines and news from around the world, and I'm seeing protests, and I'm seeing riots, and I'm seeing people pushing back against the system left and right all over the place. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's also a good thing. Like, you know, the powers that be want us to be complacent and just keep your head down and just go with the flow, even if you're starving and you're getting screwed over left and right. You know, what is the saying? It's like, they'll say you liked it if you don't complain, something like that. Like, they'll abuse you and they'll say you enjoyed it and it was good for you if you didn't say anything, something like that. I'm terrible at quotes, but I mean, if you're not happy about a situation, regardless of what it is, you should say something. You can't just go along to get along when you're suffering, you know? Anyways, we want to talk about Kamala Harris. We want to talk about Venezuela. We want to talk about the Middle East. And we want to talk about some other things. Let me see. Where do we want to start? Let's look at the headlines. Let's start there. I don't know. I always feel like it's a good little warm up to look at the AP headlines. A lot of times the headlines go into what I'm going to talk about anyways. So AP headlines. The top headline, it says Olympic boxer Iman Khalif calls for end to bullying after backlash over gender misconceptions. Olympic boxer Iman Khalif says the wave of hateful scrutiny she has faced over misconceptions about her gender harms human dignity. So yeah, I saw this, and it was a lot of posts that saying that it's that she's a man, that transgender man. But I don't know if that is actually true. Let's look at this article. They're saying the one that was born a man, wait, transgender woman? How do you say it? I get confused with that anyways. It's like you're born a woman and you take the hormones and change to a man. Is that what you call a transgender man? Y'all correct me on that. I don't know that very well. So, but I don't think they're right about this. I think that the internet is just jumping on this and making it into something that it's not. Let's look and see what the article says. By Kador Habari and Greg Betcham, August 4th, 2024. Paris AP. It says Olympic boxer Imani Khalif said the wave of hateful scrutiny she has faced over misconceptions about her gender harms human dignity, and she called for an end to bullying athletes after being greatly affected by the international backlash against her. The Algerian athlete spoke about her tumultuous Olympic experience on Sunday night in an interview with SNTV, a sports video partner of the Associated Press. I send a message to all the people of the world to uphold the Olympic principles and the Olympic Charter, to refrain from bullying all athletes because this has massive effects, Khalif said in Arabic. It can destroy people. It can kill people's thoughts, spirit, and mind. It can divide people. And because of that, I ask them to refrain from bullying. The victories of Khalif and fellow boxer Yen Yu Ting of Taiwan in the ring in Paris have become one of the biggest stories of the Paris Games. Both women have clinched their first Olympic medals, even as they have faced online abuse based on unsubstantiated claims about their gender, drawing them into a wider divide over changing attitudes towards gender identity and regulations in sports. The 25-year-old Khalif acknowledges the pressure and pain of enduring this ordeal while competing far from home in the most important event of her athletic career. I'm in contact with my family 2 days a week. I hope that they weren't affected deeply, she said. They are worried about me. God willing, this crisis will culminate in a golden medal, and that would be the best response. The vitriol stems from claims by the International Boxing Association, which has been permanently banned from the Olympics, that both Khalif and Lin failed unspecified eligibility tests for the women's competition at last year's World Championships. Khalif declined to answer when asked whether she had undergone tests other than doping tests, saying she didn't want to talk about it. She expressed gratitude to the International Olympic Committee and its president, Thomas Bach, for standing resolutely behind her while the banned former governing body of Olympic boxing stoked a furor around her participation in Paris. I knew that the Olympic Committee has done me justice, and I am happy with this remedy because it shows the truth, she said. She also has a massive support at her bouts, drawing cheers when she enters the arena and crowds waving Algerian flags, chanting her first name. She will fight again Tuesday in women's 66-kilogram semifinals at Roland Garros. Khalif repeatedly made clear she won't allow chatter or accusations to deter her from attempting to claim Algeria's first Olympic gold medal in women's boxing. I don't care about anyone's opinion, Khalif said a day after beating Anna Luka Hamari of Hungary. I came here for a medal and to compete for a medal. I will certainly be competing to improve and be better, and God willing, I will improve like every other athlete. Although she is aware of the worldwide discussion about her, Khalif says she has been somewhat removed. Honestly, I don't follow social media. She said there is a mental health team that doesn't let us follow social media, especially in the Olympic Games, whether me or other athletes. I'm here to compete and get a good result. Khalif started her Olympic run last Thursday with victory over Angela Carini of Italy, who abandoned the bout after just 46 seconds. Carini later said she regretted her decision and wished to apologize to Khalif. The unusual ending raised the chatter around Khalif into a roar, drawing comments from the likes from U.S. President Donald Trump, Harry Potter writer J.K. Rowling, and others falsely claiming Khalif was a man or transgender. The IOC repeatedly declared her and Lynn qualified to participate in the Olympics, and it was declared the murky testing standards and untransparent governance of the IBA, which was banished entirely from the Olympics last year, in an unprecedented punishment for the governing body. They're not saying anything. Khalif clearly felt the weight of the worldwide scrutiny upon her, and her victory over Hamari on Saturday appeared to be cathartic. After the referee raised Khalif's hand with the win, she went to the center of the ring, waved to her fans, knelt and slammed her palm on the canvas, her smile turning to tears. Couldn't control my nerves, Khalif said in the interview, because after the media frenzy and after the victory, there was a mix of joy and at the same time I was greatly affected because honestly, it wasn't an easy thing to go through at all. It was something that harms human dignity. She had competed in IBA events for several years without problems until she was abruptly suspended from last year's World Championships. The Russian dominated body, which has faced years of clashes with the IOC, has refused to provide any information about the tests. Algeria's National Boxing Federation is still an IBA member. I wish they would just say what the hell. Khalif is a former rural northwestern Algeria, and she grew up playing soccer until she fell in love with boxing. Overcoming her father's initial objections, she traveled 10 kilometers by bus to train for fight in a neighboring town. After reaching the sport's top level in her late teens, she struggled early in her career before reaching an elite level. Khalif have been a solid, if unspectacular, international competitor for 6 years, and she lost to eventual gold medalist Kelly Harrington of Ireland at the Tokyo Olympics. Khalif's next bout in Paris is against Janjaeem Suwanaping of Thailand. If Khalif wins again, she will fight for a gold medal Friday. Yes, these issues involve dignity and honor every woman and female, told an Algerian broadcaster in brief remarks Sunday in a meeting. The Arab population has known me for years and has seen me box in the IBA that wronged me and treated me unfairly, but have got on my side. So they didn't say what I was looking for at all. Okay, hold on. Let's look this up right quick. Imani Khalif. Let's see. Controversial testing, Imani Khalif were not legitimate. What the hell does that mean? Is not a trans athlete. Snopes. Yeah, the IOC has said Khalif meets its requirements for participation, clarifying this is not a transgender issue. Hold on. I just put in a search. I said, is Imani Khalif a transgender? This is Yahoo. And these were the results here. What is this? The Wikipedia page? Will it say it on there if it was? After failing unspecific gender eligibility test. Okay, it says there is no evidence that Khalif has XY chromosomes or elevated levels of testosterone. Khalif was born female and identifies as female. So that's what the Wikipedia page says. Let me show what I'm looking at here. So this is the Wikipedia page. The issue was Russia. So following Khalif's victory over Italy's Angela Carina during the 2024 Olympic Games, rumors surfaced on social media about her gender. These were fueled by Khalif's disqualification from the 2023 Women's Boxing Championship organized by the Russian-led International Boxing Association after failing unspecified gender eligibility tests. This disqualification happened 3 days after Khalif defeated a previously unbeaten Russian prospect, thus restoring the Russian boxer's undefeated record. The IBA Olympic status was later revoked due to governance issues, as well as judging and refereeing corruption. The International Olympic Committee and its Paris boxing unit stated Khalif was eligible to compete in the Olympics and criticized the IBA's previous disqualification as sudden and arbitrary and taken without any due process. There is no evidence that Khalif has XY chromosomes or elevated levels of testosterone. Khalif was born female and identifies as female. So, I mean, if that's enough proof, there it is. So it says in 2023, IBA President Umar Kralev said the disqualifications were because DNA tests proved they had XY chromosomes. The Washington Post stated it remains unclear what standard Khalif and Lin Yuting failed in the 2023 to lead to the disqualifications. Okay, so they did DNA tests. It says, further writing, there never has been evidence that Khalif had XY chromosomes or elevated levels of testosterone. The IBA did not reveal the testing methodology, stating the specifics remain confidential. At the time, Khalif said the ruling meant having characteristics that mean I can box with women, but said she was the victim of a big conspiracy regarding the disqualification. She initially appealed the Court of Arbitration for Sport, but later withdrew. It says July 31st, 2024, their 2023 decision, the IBA stated that Khalif and others did not undergo a testosterone examination, but were subject to a separate and recognized test whereby the specifics remain confidential and that they were found to have competitive advantages over other female competitors. Following that, the International Olympic Committee released their own statement in response, stating that the IBA's decision was sudden and arbitrary and without any due process. So it looks like she's a woman. Do you know how the whole internet is? Like the internet does not care you know, what it is. Like they look at someone and then they make a decision based on what they see. I don't know. I think it's kind of mean to put somebody in a box that they don't belong to. So that's mean. It is what it is, Joe. Let's go back to these headlines right quick. It says IOC calls test that sparked vitriol targeting boxers Iman Khalif and Yin Yu Ting impossibly flawed. For female athletes of color, scrutiny around gender rules and identity is part of a long trend. IOC leader says hate speech directed at Imani Khalif and Yin Yu Ting at Olympics is unacceptable. Tis what it is. It says Belgium withdraws from mixed relay triathlon after athlete who swam in Seine River falls ill. Oh, they was probably pooping. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he left a dead bear in Central Park as a prank. This guy, it's the randomest news keep coming out related to this guy. Like, what the F, bro? What the F? What kind of prank? What the F, bro? It says UK leader Starmer condemns attack on asylum seeker hotel as far-right violence spreads. Yeah, I saw this clip where they was trying to burn down the building with it was a immigrants, right? In the UK, it's like an immigrant building, like, probably a bunch of Muslims, Arabic people or whatever. And they tried to freaking light the damn building on fire, bro. Another headline: Ukraine Zelensky displays newly arrived F-16 fighter jets to combat Russia in the air. They're just prolonging the inevitable there. Says U.S. and allies prepare to defend Israel as Netanyahu says it's already in multi-front war with Iran. Yeah, they said Iran is planning a major offensive against them. It's not looking good. It says Japan's Nikkei 225 index plunges 7% as worries over U.S. economy shakes world markets. Yeah, man, the stock market is down. It keeps on dropping. It's been dropping since Friday, right? And look at this. Yeah, so I'm sure people lost a lot of money. It's still dropping. Still dropping right now. After hours, it's still dropping. That is not good. Not good. Let me see. Where do I want to start? Let's look at some little short clips first, and then I'm going to go into Kamala. Am I sharing? It says at least 90 killed as Bangladesh protesters renew calls for Hassani to quit. Protests over jobs quota system have morphed into a wide anti-government movement demanding Prime Minister Sheikh Hassani's resignation. So yeah, so this is in like Bangladesh, right? And they said 90 killed. So this is what I mean. Like, you got people all over the world. It's a tumultuous time. Comment, it says, please look at us with mercy. Be a reason to help me and my family in Gaza. We struggle to obtain the basic necessities of life. There's no food and our house has been destroyed. There's no cure for my mother, not even clean water. We have lost everything. We now live in fear and hunger and displacement. Everything, including the little food available, is too expensive and we cannot afford it. Our hearts hurt for our little children. That's not related, but another one from Gaza. More from Gaza. Let's see this one. It says, what's wrong with aged people in our generation? They're just squeezing themselves on us now. People are tired of them, but they don't want to go. Problem after problem. Protest after protest, but they don't want to leave power. Imagine 90 killed because of you. I think that was translated. Hashtag step down Hasina. Comment, it says, please document the march that will be happening today in Dhaka. People have already gathered starting from 3 a.m. Let's see if we can get a little bit more on this. Says dozens of people were killed in Bangladesh as new round of violent clashes between student protesters and police. Student protesters. Common theme there. Says thousands of protesters have gathered in the capital calling for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to resign.
We are not secured anywhere. We have no safety. This cannot be a secured and independent country. So we want peace, we want freedom, and we want a perfect environment for our students to go back to the classroom.
Says the government imposed an indefinite nationwide curfew and shut down internet services in an attempt to curb the unrest. Do we have more? Reuters, PBS NewsHour. Let's do a little bit of this one.
Bangladesh is under a nationwide curfew and internet blackout after a weekend of violent clashes between security forces and protesters. Almost 300 people have died, with thousands more injured. The protests have grown into a national movement against Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her increasingly autocratic rule. Ali Rogan has more.
In Bangladesh, protests over a government jobs policy ignited a broader movement against the country's longtime leader.
Yes, I want to step down Sheikh Hasina!
Protesters say Sheikh Hasina's violent crackdown is destroying her image and legacy tied to the birth of the nation itself.
We want the government to resign. We want to go back to the golden times we had in the past.
Student protests began in mid-July against a government workforce quota system which reserves some jobs for veterans of the country's 1971 War for Independence and their families. Hasina responded with violence, imposing an internet blackout and curfew, with security forces given an order to shoot on sight. The government reduced the quota after demonstrations began, but the protests had already expanded to calls for justice for those killed in the crackdown, a toll now exceeding 200.
They are killing people indiscriminately. People are being jailed. People are being tortured. At the same time, you are seeing the courage of the people of Bangladesh who have decided they will not sit down, they will not go down without a fight.
Hasina and the quota system are part of Bangladesh's founding story. Her father was Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who led the fight for an independent Bengali state after the partition of British-ruled India in 1947. The Muslim-majority areas became East and West Pakistan, but the Bengali-speaking East Pakistanis faced exploitation and marginalization from the West. Mujib helped found the Bengali nationalist Awami League, which fought for independence at the polls and eventually in a bloody war against West Pakistan. In the war's 9 months, about 3 million people were killed and millions more displaced. Mujib became independent Bangladesh's first prime minister and put the quota system in place as a reward for Bangladesh's freedom fighters. He was assassinated in 1975, and Hasina positioned herself as his political and ideological successor.
People see her as a harbinger of democracy, the daughter of the father of the revolution, and in 1991 actually gets elected to be the prime minister. And then she loses in 1996. And from 1996 to 2008, she continues to fight for democracy and gets a lot of support, a lot of goodwill.
Salil Tripathi is a writer and the author of a book on the Bangladesh War. He says after Hasina regained power, her commitment to democracy waned as she won 3 disputed elections in a row.
All of that has been accompanied by a period of serious human rights violation, an economic downturn, and this perception of nepotism and corruption.
He says most of the beneficiaries of the quota system were from the founding Awami League, excluding supporters of opposition parties.
The quota became the symptom, and now it has become full-scale opposition to the rule.
Since protests began, police have arrested at least 11,000 people.
Many were punished. After getting out from jail, they're showing the same face. They will not be spared easily.
One student protest leader said police abducted, sedated, and detained him for days.
I think they took us away to refrain us from making decisions about the movement while they massacred all these people. They made some of us disappear. Some were beaten. We were pressured to stop the movement.
Hasina stoked tensions when she referred to the protesters as Razakars, a wartime slur for supporters of the Pakistani military who fought the Bangladeshi freedom fighters.
The Razakars is the word she used on the 14th of July. And so the students started a protest saying that we are Razakars, you are Razakars, everyone is a Razakar, as a kind of, and campaign against it. And the protest just snowballed.
Now international pressure is mounting. The United Nations and European Union are calling on the government to halt its attacks. The UN human rights chief wants the government to disclose details about the crackdown. But Tripathi says the number of crises spiraling elsewhere in the world is fracturing the world's attention.
On one hand, you have the conflict in Ukraine, then you have the conflict in the Middle East, in Gaza. The US is in the middle of its own election. The Venezuelan election has thrown, a rabbit out of the hat now. So I think there are lots of other priorities which are also distracting the international community.
Inside Bangladesh, the national reckoning persists.
People make mistakes. If she would have apologized, everything would go back to normal. If she cannot control it, things will keep getting heated.
As protesters continue to defy police in the streets, it's clear that for some, an apology is no longer enough. For PBS News Weekend, I'm Ali Rogan.
Well, you got to watch what you say sometimes. This is what I'd be saying, like some of the stuff that Trump said recently, and I'm like, he should choose his words better. You have a powder keg on your hand, so you want to choose your words lightly, not lightly, heavily. You want to really think about it. You can't just be coming off your head with stuff. So the comments are turned off. It's probably emotional comments. The caption, it says, Bangladesh is under a nationwide curfew and internet blackout after a weekend of violent clashes between security forces and protesters. Almost 300 people have died since the start of the protest. which have grown into a national movement against Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her increasingly autocratic rule. So yeah, so she's been in charge for a long time. It's time to go, man. The people have the power at the end of the day. And sometimes the leaders, they forget that. And sometimes they need to be reminded. And it sucks that people have to die as a result. Yeah, so man, it's a lot going on. That's what I mean by the systems falling apart. You can't just keep your boot on people's neck forever. At some point, people are going to be like, wait, I'm not feeling this no more. It's like either kill me or get your boot off my neck. And when it gets to the point where people are willing to die, you know, that's when it gets real. So this one, it says Iranian attack expected to be significant and extensive. So this is Al Jazeera. It says Israeli Research Center, Israeli Alma estimates that Iran will launch a large-scale attack on Israel with the backing of its axis of resistance, with emphasis on Hezbollah. The retaliatory attack will include ballistic and cruise missiles and drones launched from across the country by both Iran's army and its Islamic Revolutionary Guard. This is scary right here. This is really, really could turn into a big deal. The U.S. had already deployed warships to the region because Israel, as gangster as they are, they can't protect themselves from this. And when it says axis of resistance, like I wonder who is all involved in that. I mean, we can guess at some of the players, like, you know, it's already, you know, it's going to be Hezbollah in Lebanon. You know that the Houthis from Yemen will probably be in on it. But who else? I don't know. And they just said Iran. Who else? That could really turn into a big deal. It's looking like it is going to be a big deal. And then the U.S. is going to get in, and you got a whole mess on your hands. Let's do this.
Starmer is condemning far-right violence spreading across the country. We're just learning that 10 police officers were injured in clashes in northern England tonight. Nearly 150 people have been arrested so far this weekend in several major cities. ABC's Patrick Reevell joins us now with the details from London.
Tonight, Britain grappling with an eruption of far-right violence. Nearly 150 people arrested this weekend as violent anti-immigration rallies hit multiple cities for the third day in a row. Far-right groups exploiting the horrific stabbing attack at a dance class last Monday that killed 3 children. In the northern city of Rotherham today, a mob attacking this hotel that was housing asylum seekers, trying to set it on fire. Police saying at least 10 officers injured. Since Wednesday, mobs of young men have rampaged in most major northern cities, including Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, breaking into shops, some targeting mosques. Nazis go off the streets! Though anti-racism counter-protesters often outnumbering them. The violence following far-right activists spreading false claims on social media that the suspect in that dance class stabbing attack was a Muslim illegal immigrant. In reality, the 17-year-old suspect was born and raised in Britain and is the son of Rwandan immigrants. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer tonight promising those involved in the violence will face the full force of the law.
This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery, and it has no place on our streets or online.
As we speak, there are reports of a second hotel being attacked in northern England. These are already the worst riots in the UK in more than a decade, and the government is blaming the far right, saying they are coordinating the violence and promising swift prosecution for all those involved. Lindsay.
Patrick, thank you. Britain's new Prime Minister Keir Starmer has condemned.
Yeah, so this is crazy right here. So what did they say? They said the person wasn't even an immigrant. Well, they're born from immigrant parents, but they're born in the UK. So, you know, that's what it is, man. It's always confusion. And, you know, like I said, it's a powder keg. So they've just been looking for an excuse to freaking erupt like this. So ABC World News tonight, it says around 150 people have been arrested after violent protests across Britain that left 10 officers injured. Demonstrators are exploiting the recent stabbing deaths of 3 children. And, you know, what I was thinking about when I first saw this story, because they called it like a mass stabbing or something like that is what they called it. And I was like thinking about the comparison with the United States. And, you know, we have our mass shootings or whatever. And it's like, you know, here in the United States, they're like, you know, don't take our guns away. You know, you're taking our freedom away or whatever. And I'm like, how many people, if this person was obviously doing like a terrorist act or whatever, if they were able to get a weapon, you know, a gun, how many people would they have been able to take out? You know, and I really think that we should think about that as here in the United States is like, you know, okay, you feel like, you know, you don't want your guns to be taken away. And it's like you're saying it makes you safer. But these guys, they're erupting as a result of three kids dying from stabbings, you know, and the country is losing it over that. Here in the States, we have mass shootings all the time. It's like school shootings, lots of people, lots of kids dying. And you don't see a reaction like this from the United States. It's like we tolerate the violence that comes, you know, here as a result of people being able to get their hands on these weapons, just so that we can all reserve the right to be able to have these weapons. And you say you feel safer, but you know, you're still having these mass shootings left and right all the time. Like I don't see how I don't see how it makes sense in people's mind that they're safer to have these weapons when people are dying, innocent people dying all the time as a result of gun violence. Over here in the UK, 3 kids died from a stabbing, and the country loses it. If that person had an AR-15, how many people would they have been able to take out? I'm just saying. Comments. It says, do you ever say far left? Another comment. It says far right. ABC with the rhetoric again. Another comment. Oh, you mean when citizens get angry because children were killed by a foreigner? They just said in the clip that the person was born in the UK. Another comment that says, hey, ABC, I've been looking for the story since Camel Toe refused to debate Trump. Any news on that? All caps. I don't know. The all caps doesn't make you look intelligent or anything. It's like you're screaming or something like. And then your comment isn't even related to the story that we have right here. Like, so much wrong with that comment. Another one, it says, when countries start to lose its identity and culture, they will revolt against the invaders. It may happen in the United States soon as well. The people here in the United States are lulled to sleep, bro. Like, they're overwhelmed with entertainment. Like, no, it's not going to happen here. I mean, we do have a powder keg here, but it does take a lot to get these people up off their couches. They got plenty of alcohol, drugs, and television It's going to be tough to get them up. Another comment, it says, are the Muslims with knives far right too? Another comment, as always, the far right protesting with violence. Another one, if you aren't a Democrat, you are far right. It is a shame what has happened to journalism in this country and is a big factor in polarization and decline of this country. I think they do need to be careful when they use these kind of terms. And I do blame the media in a lot of ways for the situations that we face with their biased journalism, if you quote unquote, you know, and not covering the stories that they should cover, not fact checking people when they can, you know, making this sensational clickbait headlines. It's not helping. Another comment, it says, Kamala, the border czar. I think the Brits are tired of open borders. How is that really, like, how did you tie Kamala into this? Another comment, it says, did they actually say the far-right violence? Unbelievable. Everyone knows the immigrants started stabbing people in the middle of the streets, so why spin it? Oh yeah, so the lefty politicians don't get blamed for the ridiculous open borders. Another comment, people are tired of their children being killed and their way of life. When people say way of life, I can't help but to think of like the Civil War happened because the people were saying, you know, y'all are threatening our way of life. It's like our way of life is our ability to own slaves. Another comment that says, oh, you mean citizen taxpayers versus the ... Another comment, interesting, when other groups burn cars and burn stores, it's freedom of speech. Seems like the rules are going one way. That is an interesting comment right there. That is an interesting comment. It depends on who's doing the rioting, right? It depends on who's burning buildings and fighting with the police. You know, they're thugs or whatever, depending on who they are. You know, if they're one group, they're thugs. If they're another group, then they're fighting for democracy or whatever, their way of life or their freedoms or whatever. It kind of depends on what the group looks like.
The rain. Oh, wow. Where are you bastards? The other went upstairs.
Oh, something's happening upstairs. Jump over it, jump over. We've tipped over the boiling point here. Fucking hell. They're in there. Go in there!
The rain.
It says fascists break into hotel housing refugees and try to set it on fire. Yeah, I would not be out there with those people for nothing. Caption, it says a far-right mob in Rotherham have attacked the Holiday Inn Express believed to be housing asylum seekers. comments. It says, so let me understand this properly. The police are deployed for peaceful pro-Palestinian marches, but not for violent riots initiated by white hooligans. Another comment, it says, stop bombing and invading other nations if you don't want refugees in your country. So yeah, so they were saying that it was apparently some asylum seekers, or the crowd believed that this Holiday Inn was housing asylum seekers. So they decided to try to set it on fire. Another comment, it says, imagine if this happened to a hotel where Israelis were residing. There would be a lot more coverage, and they would be screaming anti-Semitism on the top of their lungs. Another comment, the highest number of migrant boats arrived recently have been Afghans. Had the US and UK not destroyed Afghanistan, they wouldn't be here. Another comment, the only protest the police missed. Another comment, white people causing terror all over the world, even at their homes. Shame on these people. Another comment, so apparently it's okay to set fire to and fire rockets at innocent people as long as they're not white. Another comment, this isn't a riot, this is attempted murder. Another one, it says, isn't this terrorism? Another one, why aren't the police addressing this violence? Oh, that's right, because they're busy harassing peaceful demonstrators. How about they give these fascists a taste of their level of security? Another one, these people are the Christians, quote unquote, who want their country back. Yeah, sorry, bruv. Jesus would not sit with you. Another comment, what a disgusting display of arrogance, ignorance, and cruelty. England, Wales, and North Ireland needs to wake up to the real oppressors in this world, and it's not migrants trying to make a better life. You are being played. Their delusion is a comfort. No need for critical thought, self, or collective awareness. I would agree with that comment. Another one, but remember, kids, the big problem is anti-Semitism. Another one, why are the anti-riot police not there? Another one, colonizers colonizing, and I guess the cops were on vacation that day. Yeah, where the hell are the police while they're trying to freaking set this building on fire? I saw a clip where they said they're going to be doing round the clock what do you call it, court sessions there. They're going to be using the CCTV footage and the cops body cam footage and trying to identify as many people as they can and prosecuting them as quickly as they can. I don't know where that clip is, but I saw that. What is this one? Okay, let's go on to Venezuela. Let's talk about Venezuela.
That the reality of these numbers is so warped. I was completely unprepared for what would happen to me for simply reporting these facts. Because I question the validity of the fatality count being 100% due to state forces, prominent opposition spokespeople created a false hysteria over an outrageous lie that myself and Empire Files producer Mike Preisner were not journalists, but in fact working directly for the government intelligence forces, and that we weren't actually conducting interviews of protesters, but taking their pictures to turn into police forces. And not only that, but the police had then arrested protesters based on our intelligence. The life-threatening lie was first promoted by professor at Venezuela's Simón Bolívar University and opposition activist, José Vicente Carrasquero. The rumors were echoed and exaggerated by several prominent opposition journalists, like Manuel Malaver and Miami reporter Angie Perez. The disinformation campaign incited a virtual lynch mob against us for days, which translated into real-life stalking and threats, calls to fine and kill us, doxing of personal information, and more. Revealing their characters, scores of opposition Twitter accounts specifically used the word lynch when calling for violence against us. More than that, this opposition hate campaign also posted the address of an event Mike was speaking at, inciting people to come confront us, and worse. Dozens of Venezuelan expats actually showed up, chanting against socialism, and tried to physically force their way into the event to disrupt it. But the threats of violence were not empty. Just days later, a Telesur journalist was actually shot in the back by opposition protesters when her and her team were viciously attacked with Molotov cocktails, bullets, and explosives. Many other journalists have also been called infiltrators and attacked, like when a Global Vision crew was doused with gasoline by protesters at a recent demonstration and told to leave or they would get burned. Amazingly, international human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch and the Committee to Protect Journalists have been silent on the attacks on journalists from the opposition and have only condemned the government for press repression. For as much as Venezuela's poor is used as the basis of the international media campaign to oust the government, the poor people from the barrios of Venezuela are not the ones protesting. Surprised as I was to see that the reality of these numbers is so warped, I was completely unprepared for what would happen to me for
So it says the U.S. is attempting, hold on. It says the U.S. is attempting yet another coup in Venezuela. The Venezuelan opposition doesn't have enough popular support to win elections, so they encourage violence and chaos instead. Today we see protests burning down hospitals, maternity clinics, and other socialist enclaves. When I was there in 2017, fascist mobs burned Chavistas alive, doused journalists in gasoline, shot my colleague, threatened to lynch me, and continued to target us in LA. Comment, it says, this is not true. The people that are actually being subjected to torture are the opposition leaders and supporters. People disappear daily and have been since protesting began back in 2012. The Venezuelan people have been fighting for liberty for 12 years now. If the current government is so loved by the Venezuelans, why is the country facing the biggest migration crisis in the modern history in the absence of war? I admire you, but being progressive should mean more than just supporting a left-wing rhetoric, no matter the consequences. Be more nuanced and support the actual people of the facts, not ideas. Well, the part where he says, why is the country facing the biggest migration crisis in modern history in the absence of war, is because the people are starving, okay? Running away inflation. You know, that is what it is. So we can argue about why that is. We can say that it's the government not taking care of business, or we can say that, you know, the sanctions that's been on Venezuela is the reason, you know. But it's a bad faith argument that you're making there when you're like, you know, people can be leaving as a result of the government, but that's indirect to the fact that they're leaving because of their conditions. They could say that the conditions are because of the government, and that's the problem. That could be their view, and that could be the reason why they're leaving. But it's a bad faith argument when you're leaving that part out. Another comment, it says, my goodness, I'm following because it's supposed. My goodness, I'm following because it's supposed you have done your research before you talk. This is so inaccurate. So please, for respect of the people from Venezuela who are giving their life in the streets against the dictatorship, you should modify or eliminate this post. Please do the same research you do in the U.S. when you speak about other countries. Another comment, it says, unfollowing. Dictatorships are not alternatives to imperialism. Some leftists need a effing wake-up call. Another comment, Abby, I've been following your work. This time is not the same situation. I understand the U.S. has orchestrated coups before, but Maduro has committed fraud. He has no evidence to support his victory. He's been following this election closely. I've been following this election closely. Maduro is also an authoritarian and violent leader, and he does not want to have a democratic process. So all of these comments are kind of like going against what she was saying. Another one that says, wait, are you saying Maduro is the good guy and the opposition is bad? I'm so confused. Another one, not going to say that the U.S. is not trying to get involved for interest and resources, but this makes it seem like things are so good under current administration that they keep voting them in. Please explain the people leaving in droves. Then and countless stories of people suffering. Well, I have a video to go to that I think will clear this up. I wanted to cover this too, but I'm gonna come back to this.
Important paper. Some people might have consumed it as.
Hold on. That's not it. I apologize. I'm going into that in a second. I'm about to go into Kamala, but I want to finish up Venezuela first. Let's do this right
The
here.
media is lying to you about Venezuela. By now, you've probably seen the videos of people in Venezuela protesting, tearing down statues, burning banners of the current president, and blocking Venezuela's main airport. They're protesting because Venezuela just had an election, and the country's electoral authority announced that Nicolas Maduro, the candidate of the United Socialist Party, beat the right-wing opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez. For months, the opposition said they'd only respect the election results if they won. And sure enough, they immediately said the election was fraudulent after they lost. So what's their evidence? The first thing they say is that they've collected 73% of the voting precinct's paper results, and that the paper results don't match the electronic results. For those who don't know, Venezuela's voting system was designed with multiple controls to prevent fraud. There's a two-step voting process. First, where the voter has to produce his or her national ID card and scan their fingerprint to cast an electronic vote. And then the second part, the paper ballot, where the voter receives a paper receipt of their vote, which they drop into a ballot box, creating two tallies which can be checked against one another, one electronic and one paper. The opposing candidates each have witnesses in the precincts for the counting of the paper ballots to check against the electronic tally that gets released by the electoral authority. There were also over 900 election observers from 95 different countries present, and if you look at the reports from Sunday, people were overwhelmingly reporting a calm, orderly process at the voting stations. The opposition is claiming that they already have 3/4 of the paper ballots collected, but they haven't actually produced any of them. So until that happens, it's just talk. Another talking point the media has been running with is this exit poll that allegedly shows Edmundo Gonzalez winning by over 30%. The poll has been cited by the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, Reuters, and seemingly shows that the results being reported don't match what voters were saying as they were leaving the polls. The only problem with this? The polling firm they're citing is basically an arm of the US government. As research done by Ben Norton over at the Geopolitical Economy Report shows, the polling firm Edison Research counts among its top clients Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and the Middle East Broadcasting Networks, all of which are US state-owned media that were created to disseminate pro-US messaging in their respective regions. They all work under the US Agency for Global Media, which is a US government agency, and its website says that the media outlets serve, quote, the long-range interests of the United States. Exit polling is also illegal in Venezuela, so they did this outside the law with no way of cross-checking it. US policy towards Venezuela has been incredibly hostile for the last 20 years. So it's hard to believe that a polling firm whose whole business model is based on conducting polls for US state media would suddenly turn out a poll completely contradicting the US narrative. But by far the most telling aspect of all of this is that the Venezuelan opposition said they weren't going to recognize the election results way before the election even started. In a video interview with the Financial Times a month before the election, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado said that they expected to win by a landslide, but that if they didn't, it could only be because Maduro committed fraud. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. Venezuela's electoral authority is supposed to have 72 hours to release the full results, but the opposition decided within 1 hour to declare it illegitimate, and within 12 hours they were staging an insurrection.
So before the election results was even out, they were already saying that it was fraud and, you know, that they had won and they were cheated.
US did the same thing too. Almost immediately after votes started being tallied, Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, immediately tried to cast doubt on the election results. This begs the question, how could US officials have known their position on the election before it was even finished? And the answer is, they already had their minds made up. They were going to declare the election fraudulent no matter what. In fact, if the US respected the outcome of this election, it would be the exception to the rule. In 2019, a Venezuelan politician named Juan Guaido claimed he should be the real president of Venezuela after Nicolas Maduro won the election in 2018. Guaido was basically unknown in Venezuelan politics prior to his declaration and wasn't even a candidate in the 2018 election. And yet,
this guy wasn't even a candidate. And then they're like, he's the one who won, and he's the rightful, president of Venezuela. And this wasn't that long ago. It's crazy to me how people have such a short memory when it comes to this stuff.
despite this, the Trump administration pushed this ridiculous idea that he was actually the president of Venezuela. The U.S. not only met with Guaido like he was the president, they also handed him state assets like Citgo and the Venezuelan embassy, while they funded extreme right-wing opposition groups in Venezuela and openly called for the overthrow of the elected government.
And I saw that with the assets that they gave away. Like, they took all of the assets that Venezuela had here in the States. They literally took them. And then you wonder why Venezuela is struggling. Their economy is sucking, but you don't mention the fact that the United States took their assets. Like, that's how they make their money. Like,
in 2002, the Bush administration backed the coup against Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, who had begun redistributing oil revenue from Venezuela's state-owned oil company from the rich to the poor. U.S. leaders met with the coup plotters, who were handpicked stooges of the Venezuelan elite, and openly endorsed the coup during the brief couple days when the coup mongers had taken power. There's a great documentary about the 2002 coup called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, which you should all watch. This all begs another question. Why does the U.S. want to overthrow the Venezuelan government? And the simple answer is, Venezuela has the largest petroleum reserves in the world. For the longest time, Venezuela's oil was there for the rich to plunder. The Venezuelan elite and multinational corporations treated Venezuela's oil sector like a personal piggy bank, while the Venezuelan people lived in absolute poverty. This went on until Hugo Chavez, a socialist, won the 1990 election and decided that Venezuela's wealth should be enjoyed by the Venezuelan people, not the elite or foreign corporations. Both the 2002 coup attempt and the 2019 coup attempt were directly tied to oil. In fact, in one interview during the 2019 coup attempt, Donald Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, openly stated that he wanted to see U.S. oil companies take over Venezuela's energy sector.
And that's what it's all about right there. U.S. oil companies taking over Venezuela's energy sector. So it's like, as long as Venezuela wants to control their destiny related to their oil reserves, then they're going to continue to have these problems. And you're going to continue to have this situation where they're trying to, get a different leader in there. And you can pretty much guarantee the day that they get a different leader, opposition leader, like let's say this opposition leader that they're propping up right now somehow ends up in charge, you can bet the first thing that they're going to do is open up their oil for foreign folks.
So if you think of a company like Citgo, which is owned by PDVSA, which is the state-run oil company there in Venezuela, we have a lot of those Citgo assets right here in the U.S. Is that something, for example, sir, that you're looking at?
Yeah, well, we're in conversation with major American companies now that are either in Venezuela or, in the case of Citgo, here in the United States. It'll make a big difference to the United States economically if we could have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. It'd be good.
It would be it would be so good for the American companies if we could just, have the oil, Venezuelan oil. And this guy is he's the military. What was his position? The guy with the big mustache. He was like Secretary of Defense or something like. So it's crazy, like these are the folks that are supposed to be like protecting the United States or, from foreign invasions or whatever, But it's like, that's not really what their job is. Their job is to look out for American corporations. Let me take it back a little bit.
Difference to the United States economically if we could have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of the United States.
But Hugo Chavez wasn't just a resource nationalist. He was also an anti-imperialist. Part of what he did to change Venezuela was that he decided that Venezuela would no longer be a cog in the U.S.'s imperialist fever dreams in Latin America. that it would advocate for a new international order based on peace and cooperation instead of invasions and economic exploitation. Venezuela became one of the first countries to oppose the U.S. wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and also became an unwavering supporter of the Palestinian cause. Nicolas Maduro, Chavez's successor, has continued this legacy, forging closer ties with global South countries, seeking a new international system, one that's not based on U.S. domination. Venezuela's Bolivarian revolution has inspired other progressive movements throughout Latin America that have undermined U.S. power in the region. Antony Blinken, Marco Rubio, and all the other war criminals that have been managing and overseeing the genocide in Palestine didn't suddenly wake up one day and realize that they care so deeply about the little boys and girls in Venezuela. In fact, the US government is currently enforcing a sanctions regime that's estimated to have killed at least 100,000 people in Venezuela through manufactured poverty and scarcity. U.S. sanctions against Venezuela's oil sector, which is its primary source of income, caused the oil sector to collapse and the subsequent decrease of government income by 99%. So yes, the poverty and scarcity you hear about is very real, but it's caused by U.S. sanctions, which have forced Venezuelans to live off 1% of their pre-sanctions income. This is also what's behind the wave of Venezuelan migration that you hear about on the news. It all comes back to this policy of manufactured poverty. If the United States actually cared about the well-being of Venezuelans, they wouldn't be strangling the Venezuelan economy to the point where there are shortages of fuel and medicine. In fact, the United States tends to be the most violent when it feigns humanitarian concern. They manufacture social crises and then use it as an excuse for regime change. The US has a long history of supporting these color revolutions. When they know they can't directly invade a country, they create a social crisis to undermine it. And now they're doing the same thing to Venezuela.
So that's what's really happening. You know, it's a lot of Venezuelans that work at my job where I work at. And I'm willing to bet a lot of those people that are trying to get asylum at the border are Venezuelan. And we want to look at the border and say we want to close it and, you know, all of this stuff. But we don't want to look at the nuances of the situation that leads to it and how much influence, you know, the policies of the United States has led to this increase in migration and immigration coming across the border. Anyways, I'm about to move on to Kamala. Let's read some comments if they have some here. Well, let's read the caption. It says, "Here's what the media isn't telling you about the Venezuelan election." Yeah, and the media is not being fair with this story at all. It's totally from one perspective only, and that's the reason why everybody thinks they knows what the hell is going on, and they don't. It's like the whole thing with Guaido, like they forgot about that. Americans have such a short memory. Comments, it says, and the Democrats are in agreement with the Republicans again. Yeah, on this topic, pretty much all foreign, what do you call it? Foreign policy. Pretty much all foreign policy, the Republicans and the Democrats are step in step. They are right along with each other. You know, when it comes to like the cultural issues, the ones that divide the country and have us at each other's neck, then you got one side versus the other. But the stuff that really matters, like foreign policy, like economic policy, they're step in step with each other. For the most part, anyways.
So you're a globalist?
What does that mean?
Well, your comment was the stuff that really matters.
Yeah, the stuff that you know that matters the most, you know, is, you know, economic
Foreign
issues and
policy.
It's definitely not cultural issues. So that was my comparison. Economics,
how we get
foreign
along
policy.
with each things
Go
that
ahead.
how we get along, our day-to-day living isn't more important than what's going on with other countries.
Well, we live in a global world. It's all connected. I agree with the idea of America first. I don't disagree with that. But I do disagree with putting these cultural issues on the top of our agenda, being that it's the most important thing to worry about is some stuff about, you know, transgenders or something like that.
Well, no, I mean,
Bathrooms.
yeah, I mean, no, that stuff is very much important. Now, I mean, us going in other countries and taking their resources. See, I don't agree with that. I think that us taking care of our own stuff and focusing on, think, our I think cultural things to me is more important than going to try to rob somebody for their shit. So, you know,
Yeah, well, I don't agree with taking Venezuelans resources. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we live in a global world. So the things that happen on the other side of the world does affect us, and we also have to think about the backlash from the policies that we have. Like, perfect example is immigration. So that is, for this election, that's one of the biggest deals, right? Worried about the border. So our foreign policy is directly related to the border. You get what I'm saying? So the border being a really important issue in this election is directly related to our foreign policy. It drives the immigration. It drives the migration.
I mean, I get that, but at the same time, like but that's when people who believe that, you know, our borders are open, should be open. That's more of a globalist approach. Somebody who, wants the borders closed, that's more the nationalist approach. And, we control, we have better control of what's going on within our own culture. Because I mean, we lose more of our culture the more that people, also outsiders, people who from other countries come in, because they're bringing their culture to America, which may not, be cohesive with what we believe. Now, I mean, there's a bunch of people that comes from other countries that want to be a part of what we have. They want to, join in on what we're doing. But then there's others that's just like, and then it's just like automatic, where some people, like, okay, this is how they've been living all their life. They, wherever they go, that's who they're gonna be, and then it's just gonna, culture is gonna change to some extent because of the presence of those.
I don't agree with that. Since the conception of the United States, it has always been a melting pot. We are a nation of immigrants, and it's the culture of the United States has spawned from this mixing of cultures from around the world.
I get that. That's why I mean, I'm only recognizing the fact that there's certain things that's going to automatically change because of what other people are bringing from the country that they originate from.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that would add to the United States culture. It would add to
But that's the thing.
diversity.
It doesn't necessarily make it a good or a bad thing. It makes it a thing. It just that's what happens. That's all I'm saying. But at the same time, now there's countries where, like, prostitution is like normal everyday thing. We don't think that I mean, even though it is, we try to you know have some kind of standard of how that process will take place. You know what I'm saying? Like, some places think that, like, I mean, there's some countries, if we talking about Saudi Arabia and like some of these that, like, marrying an 11-year-old is just normal day, a normal day.
Yeah, but the laws aren't going to change based on people who came over here. We have laws in
The
place.
laws won't, but that's what I'm trying to talk about is culture and what people believe is normal for them and what they will bring to our country, just them being who they are. Like there's certain things that we have to really be careful about because we don't want to overrun our country with people that's considered pedophiles here, and it's not normal everyday life wherever they're from.
That same thing was happening here in the States really not that long ago. I mean, they had to pass laws to keep from people marrying their cousin and marrying their 12-year-olds. That was happening here in the States. And it wasn't Muslims doing it.
I'm not speaking of I'm just saying period. I mean, and the people who are doing that, my thing, like, that's not the culture of the United States. Maybe it is in different parts of America that I don't know what everybody is doing around the world and other parts of this continent, but I think that we have to, personally, I'm a nationalist, so I think that the culture is very much important. Like, I mean, these other things has tremendous value. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I guess, us operating the way we do, I mean, us going and robbing people of their shit, that's a part of what keeps us great. Or so, I don't, so I'm being facetious, but I'm just saying, like, the main things that I think that we have to try to maintain so that it doesn't get out of control. We have to have some form of some standards because that's, why people want to come here in the first place.
Let me read some comments. It says Venezuela just needs bricks. That's an interesting comment.
That's coming if it's
Yeah.
not already.
Yeah, that's what I was
If
thinking.
it's
Yeah.
not already here.
Another comment, it says the great Satan is at it again. Another one, the same U.S. foreign policy script over and over again, so predictive and shameful. Another one, the USA does this all over the Middle East too. Another one, the propaganda is in full force. Another comment, it says trying to tell Americans that Venezuela is the victim of American imperialism is like trying to explain rocket science to a caveman. Couple more. It says scientists, we found oil on moon. America, moon needs democracy. Another comment. Meanwhile, Ukraine maintains such a high level of democracy that it doesn't even need elections or term limits. Another comment. Why it's not just the oil, it's also the socialist economic model. Big money hates socialism. So yeah, that part, I mean, he briefly mentioned it in the video, but he didn't dig into that. So that is definitely a huge part of this that can't be understated. So it's socialism, communism, McCarthyism, Cold War, all of this is contributing to the situation that we have, the visceral hate or whatever that the United States has for Venezuela. So yeah, it's the oil, but it's that he what do they call it? Nationalize it when they make it so where the oil is owned by the people. So then as a result, then they pay like change for oil. It's really low priced because of the way that they have it set up there. And also the oil that they sell, the gasoline, everything that gets sold, it comes back into the pot for the Venezuelan people, for all of the people. So it's not private. So that is the issue that they really hate the most. If Venezuela was screwing over their people and starving them, like on purpose, but they allowed private companies to deal with the oil and gas, then the United States would not have a problem with that. They would not get involved at all They would not care. They would not say we need to save the Venezuelan people or whatever. That would not be the case. So that is the situation that leads to the United States want to be involved, because it's close to us too, like geographically, so it's like in the area of the United States, they don't want any country that's like sharing with the people. Like it's all about private property, private property rights, and that's what it's all about. It's capitalism. It's the same reason why Cuba catches so much hell, because it really doesn't make any sense that we have such a huge problem with Cuba. Like that doesn't make any sense at all until you look at it as the United States doesn't want an example of a country that runs its country with a different model from this Western capitalistic private property model, because it doesn't want people here in the United States seeing something like that working. So that everybody here in the States feels like if it's socialism, it's communism, it doesn't work, and everybody starves and they wait forever for health care and so forth and so on. So that is the narrative that they want people to have. So if there's examples that go against that particular narrative, you have to root that out. So what they do in a lot of cases is they make things true after the fact. They make those things true as a result of their actions, not as a result of the socialism. They make it true as a result of what the U.S. does, like, sanctions and so forth and so on, installing shady leaders. A couple more comments. It says, if I had a penny every time the U.S. called for a new fake president in Venezuela, I'd be wealthy. Another one, to put the United States out the pasture, you must get off the U.S. dollar teat. One more, I'll move on. It says, we're not falling for it, but what can we do? The only compelling power of the common citizen is civil disobedience. Just look at the case of Gaza and Sudan. We have written letters, we have protested, we have done media campaigns and outreach, we have donated aid and money. We're at the point of begging the government to just show mercy, yet those wars are still ongoing. Government in the West have been captured by big business and big business by financial capital. The interests these governments serve are those of the owners controlled of financial capital. These predators see us as prey at the bottom of the pyramid. So it's like, what can you do? That's the reason why people go out and burn stuff down, because they feel hopeless. They feel like there's nothing they can do. Their vote is not going to make a difference. Their donating money is not going to make a difference. What are you going to do? Write letters.
Well, let me ask, do you think that on a globalistic approach that every country is living under the same system? Does that system work now? Like, you think that, like, if everything was a socialist under, like a socialist or communist, or I don't know, whatever is thought to be the perfect.
Well, there is no perfect economic system, and really everything is a combination of those two. Really, a combination of socialism and capitalism. We even have that here in the States. We have lots of social programs here in the States. So the United States is not exclusively, capitalist.
I know that.
Because if it was, then you wouldn't have programs like food stamps or Social Security or
I get it, and that's also with our government, like us being a republic with democratic processes. So I think that in order to come close to imperfection or perfection, or however you want to look at it, is there has to be something that's going to be give some balance. You can't just have one or the other. So you're talking about a system that is going to be majority one or the other. I think that the government, some of these systems, the government benefits more than the people. So, we have to find where the sweet spot is.
Yeah, but when we say the people, they're talking about elites, the few, the corporations. You know what I mean? Like,
Who's
yes,
that?
they're doing great. What I mean is when they say,
That's not what I mean when I say it.
well, that's what they mean when they say it.
Okay, well, I'm not talking about that, but that's the whole thing. My comment and the comment that you're referring to is not the same.
Well, I'm talking about the system that we have here in the States. We have a gross imbalance of wealth. Look, these billionaires, they're turning into trillionaires. These, we get to the point, the way things are going, you have one person owning all of the property in the whole ass United States. And then the rest of us are going to be renters.
Yeah.
This is the direction we're going into.
Yeah,
So where's the balance in that?
But listen to who's talking. Like you're looking. I mean, we're talking about democracy over republic, and democracy is not what we need the majority of. We need more. Like we need to say, like we have to have certain standards, because first of all, like our freedom is what makes us, gives us the ability to truly be able to operate. If we're going to move into a system that is mostly socialist, that's more government control, and it doesn't set for people to really be able to move freely, have the same free enterprise as the government and or the elites that's at the top. We're talking about tech companies that's trying to do their best to censor you, keep you from being able to speak out about anything that's going on, and that's one of the biggest problems. That's what leads to government doing whatever the fuck they want to do, and that's a problem.
Well, what the base bottom line comes down to is property rights, okay? And so when you're comparing capitalism to socialism, is the issue is the property rights issue, where what is wrong with the people who are paying taxes getting a return on their investments? Why can't they invest in the name of the American people and give them dividends as a result of the taxes that they're paying in?
I look. I've made that argument many times. I think that's something that we may even discuss. I agree with, because I mean, my whole thing is that the socialist part of our country should be independent to some extent, where it shouldn't be able to be touched by anyone but those who have put into that system. The government should not be able to decide, oh well, we're going to use this money. No, go use money from somewhere else. Go rob another country. I don't care. Don't fuck with American
Like how they be dipping into the Social Security all the time, like it's his personal little piggy bank.
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is, the argument is going to always come back to the property rights, where somebody should own it, whatever it is, a private individual. And they're saying because the government can't do anything right, they mismanage funds, they're going to mess over the people, the private sector does a better job. We want it to be the argument is versus publicly owned versus privately owned. Kind of like how you have these worker co-ops, where the people who work at the company all own a piece of it, you know.
Well,
so their salaries is based on how well the company is doing from year to year. So then how hard they work they're gonna work harder than a person that's just getting paid the minimum if they own a piece of the company, and they're gonna make sure it stays going. They're not gonna sell it, you know what I mean? They're not gonna shortchange it. They're gonna put in money for research and development to make sure that they're staying cutting edge. Instead of, you have the other side is these equity firms who buy up property, and it's vulture venture capitalism. It's they suck it dry, and this is what's happening across the nation, where a viable company that's profitable gets bought by this hedge fund, and then they sell all the property underneath it. They fire half of the people. They basically suck it dry, and the company struggles to survive, and all of that money gets funneled to a few people, and the majority of people suffer. And that is the system. So these are the two competing systems, where if you had some kind of balance between those two, it would be the best situation. But the ones that are elites, the ones that are in the position to reap the benefits of the majority of the labor, they don't want to change this. They want things to stay the same, and they're willing to go to war for it. They're willing to die for it.
All right, well, let's kill their ass. Because
Off with their heads.
Off with their motherfucking heads. I mean, that's the part where I'm talking about, because I mean, I'm sick of politics that is where it's they say one thing and they do something else. And that's the part that I'm fighting, because I mean, there's nothing, we're far from perfect here in this country. And, there's a lot of change that needs to happen. And my thing is, because I mean, regardless, we're still looking at, even through this race, the better of two evils. And for us to have a country similar to what we were looking for, there's really only, really there's two ways, but with the way that they're propping it up, they're making it seem like there's only really that one way. Because I mean, I ain't gonna lie, JFK Jr. to me is, for president, is very sexy. I like him a lot, but the whole thing with Kamala is they made the fight against Kamala and Trump. So now we're at a point where, okay, do we vote for some guy and give our vote away to somebody who really doesn't have a chance, or do we go with whatever is going to be?
And that's what really, really sucks. And I wish that more people was aware that, we getting funneled into this. So like the argument related to how Kamala becoming
because it should be JFK and Trump, really, because he's the only, he's the one that's.
Well, I like Cornel West a lot, but he has no shot. He's in the presidential race, but he don't have no chance of winning.
He's not on the list. He's not on the list of candidates
because they just don't cover him. He's there. He's running for president.
No, I'm talking about on the actual registration.
He's running. He is. He's running for president. He totally is. The media is not covering him.
Okay.
They just don't mention him. They just leave him off the list. He doesn't have a chance, but it sucks. The argument that it wasn't very democratic the way that Kamala became the nominee for the Democratic Party is a fair argument. And it also points to,
it's more than fair argument. I mean, bro,
it points to how our system is rigged against the people, as far as the people not getting to choose. Really, we have this illusion of choice where it was going to be Trump or Biden, and now it's Trump or Kamala, and it's like, who, the majority of the people would love to have a different option, but they don't.
But my thing is, because I mean people who support the Democratic Party should be outraged and upset to where it's like, okay, if when somebody's installed like that, like Kamala got installed, because I mean she's still the presumptive
Now she's
candidate.
officially the nominee now.
When
They
did it
had
happen?
they had this present week. They had the Democratic convention, and they selected her. She received the delegates. She's officially the Democratic nominee now. It happened like
Okay,
Friday, Thursday or Friday.
I thought that was coming later in August.
Well, they said she has received the number of delegates needed to get the nomination. So
Okay,
it's
well,
done.
either neither here nor there, because regardless of how it happened, because there was no vote by the people, because I mean regardless of how many, because that's still shady by if even though you have these delegates, you still didn't have the people to say,
Right. And a lot of these delegates they're not elected, no one voted
no.
on them. They're like insiders. They're just like people that were chosen. So yeah, that's shady. So
But that's why I'm saying people who are Democrats should be upset, because I think like now at this point, I guess they're so used to being controlled, or just having to deal with the fact that they're like the last few elections, when Bernie had the most votes, and they still put in Hillary, it's kind of like, okay, what warranted that? Why is it that
yeah,
they
that was an example of them, screwing over the people again. And the way Biden got in there was the same situation. Sanders was gonna win. He was on track. And then you had Buttigieg and Kamala drop out and throw their support behind Biden, and Biden jumped in all late, and boom, it was Biden. It was basically given to him. He was selected, but not by the people, really.
At all.
I mean, it's an illusion. I mean, so let's do a little bit of this video right here to talk about Kamala some. So, there's some arguments whether or not Kamala is a progressive or not. What do you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess, I mean, to me, that's in the eye of the beholder, because some people think that, and the more that I have these political discussions, I realize how, I mean, of course, there's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of people who don't really understand, the step by step, the cause and effect of these decisions that get made. But overall, there's a lot of people who think that, hey, us our free aid money, does, because I mean it should be, because of how we just print money, it shouldn't cause inflation or this, that, and the other, but it does. It's something that we actually have to deal with in the life of things costing more, this, this, that, and the other. But these decisions that's being made has an effect on how we're gonna make it. And some people feel like, regardless, we should, everybody gets free money, but it's still gonna cost you, because guess what, you're gonna be forced to do something else if you go under that design of I don't know, I'm gonna say politics, because I mean I don't I think that if the more independent we are as humans, the better off that we'll be long term, because not that we don't have any type of services that assist us in the long term. But I think if we looked at it more privately, and we looked at how we could, you know, even for our own retirements, or, you know, when we're getting old age, that this, you know, if let's say if we have disabilities, there's different things that we can put into, you know, into play for ourselves that the government don't have to have anything to do with. And I'm just a strong proponent on that. Like, I mean, they fuck over our money all the time. What, you know, why we can still thinking that these people are gonna do the right thing for our monies? So like back out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you don't get to opt out of like the money they take out of your check.
Why not?
You can't, because you can't. They're gonna take the taxes out of your check. There's no opting out of that. When you get a payroll check, they automatically take that out.
I'm not I'm an employee right now. I have opted out. I'm still not paying taxes.
Yeah. Let me I mentioned I want to play a little bit of this video. I mentioned Lena Khan in the show yesterday, and so you got these guys who don't like her, and this guy doesn't like her, and he gave Kamala Harris like $7 million, and he wants Kamala Harris to fire her. She's the FTC chair. So what do you think? You think that Kamala would actually do it? Like, you know, we always have to wonder when these people give them money, or, you know, what are they going to give them in return? Because the $7 million was to go towards the campaign, of course, to help her get elected or whatever. But there's no necessarily quid pro quo related to that. But that doesn't mean that these people aren't going to do something in return for these folks. These people are, you know, they're rich folks. They always want returns on their investment. They're not going to just give money willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm. No, I believe that
joining
in a lot of cases there are contingencies with getting the money. So if I give you this money, I expect that you're going to, if you accept it, that means that
right,
this is, you know, you agree with,
we've made a
the
contract.
terms. Yeah.
Let me play some of this.
Joining us now is the aforementioned Matt Stoller, who of course works at the American Economic Liberties Project and authors the Big Substack newsletter. Great to see you, sir.
Good to see you, man. Hey, good to see you.
So there has been this ongoing situation of billionaires publicly pressuring Kamala Harris to oust Lena Khan, of course, FTC commissioner, who has been instrumental in the antitrust direction of the Biden administration, which is your bread and butter. The most recent part of this saga that I'll start off by getting you to react to was Jake Tapper actually had one of those primary billionaires on, Reid Hoffman. And to everyone's surprise, he did a good job of holding Hoffman's feet to the fire over these demands being made. Let's take a listen to how that exchange went down.
You and other big money donors are giving money to Vice President Harris, suggesting also that she replace the head of the FTC, which impacts policy and the economy. What do you say to somebody who watches this and says, this isn't how American politics should work, rich people getting to buy levels of influence?
Well, I totally agree with not buying levels of influence. I separate my role as a donor and expert. So if you ask me as a donor, I say I'm giving money to Kamala Harris because I think she's the best future president for the U.S., for business, for a bunch of other things. If you ask me as an expert about what, you know, kind of Lena Khan is doing and whether I think she is helping or hurting America relative to your anti-merger policies, which are, you know, mostly to bring litigation versus, you know, really solidly grounded in kind of what's going on, what helps American business thrive here and overseas, then I give an expert opinion. But I think donor and expert should be kept separate. And I've never tied the two ever in any conversation anywhere I've ever had.
Bullshit. Right, but I mean, that world doesn't really exist where people say, okay, now I'm talking to Reid Hoffman, the donor, and Reid Hoffman, the guy with political ideas, I'm going to put into the other room.
You know, when I speak to these things, I speak more as a venture capitalist. I never speak as a Microsoft board member.
But there aren't all these, there aren't like 100 Reid Hoffmans. It's not like one of you is a donor and one of you has opinions on Lina Khan, and one of you is on the board of Microsoft, and one of you is a venture capitalist. You're all the same guy.
Of all of Biden's appointees, J.D. Vance is most enthusiastic about Lina Khan, and maybe that has some, swing voter implications. And maybe also, I've also gotten a bunch of feedback from, a bunch of people I deeply respect within the Democratic ecosystem saying, well, we're much more positive than you. And I'm like, look, I love what she's done on anti-competes with employees. I dislike what she's been doing on, and I think it's bad for investment on kind of antitrust and investment.
So Matt, before I get your reaction, if you could just specify which identity of Matt Stoller you're going to use in order to give this response, because apparently, what did you make of this?
It's freaking crazy. And so like the stuff that he's saying that he has a problem with is the main stuff that I like the most about what she is doing, holding these big conglomerates, these major corporations, holding them to the law. There's laws on the books. There's antitrust laws on the books that just hasn't been enforced. And she has been enforcing them. And, illegal mergers and stuff like that. When you are creating a monopoly, when you have way too much influence in one sector in the economy, because overall it's bad for the economy. And it's also bad for the people, So that is the thing. So, but this guy, he has a problem with her doing that stuff, of course, because those guys, they want to be able to do whatever they want to do that's going to make the most money, regardless of who it hurts and regardless of even the stability of the market. Because they say this stuff about free market, but it's not a free market when you have these monopolies. And it's not a healthy market either when you don't have real competition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, none of them want competition. I mean, that's the whole business model. I mean, I believe in, competition, if you're not doing the right thing, because I mean, overall, you have to, when there's competition, you have to be competitive. You have to be
right.
Good for the, it's going to be better for the people. And that was that's just like the whole thing with healthcare. Like you get a better product when there's more competition. But when you take all of the competition out, then they can kind of do what they want to do.
Yeah, well, there's not much real competition in the healthcare that we have right now. It's
exactly.
It's not real.
That's after Obamacare. Like, I mean, there was a real shot at it, doing it and getting the right, like, I guess I don't really believe in pharmaceuticals, but I mean, just for those who do, I mean, being able to have, get health care, be able to go see your doctors, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 as well as getting cheap or inexpensive, pharmaceuticals. Like there was a real chance for that, but by saying that, oh look, we have to in order to get a good deal, we have to put everything together and this. No, that's not true. Like, I mean, eventually more people are gonna choose the top companies, the ones who's being most competitive with the race.
If there are actual competition, but there isn't. So there's only like one or two choices that you're gonna have. So you're gonna go with those one or two because there aren't any others.
Well, no,
So
but that was what was created through our government. Those main one or two is the one, because there's a few that survived through the whole thing, which I know in Louisiana, like Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's like one of the main ones that's kind of like outside, there's Aetna, like, but they're, kind of converting into something other than what they used to be. So it's like an extension of the United Healthcare or United, whatever it's called. So
That's what I'm trying to say. They're all a part of it. It'll be what appears to be a different company, but it's not, because it's owned by the same company. And that's as a result of these mergers and stuff that we're talking about here, that the FTC chair is fighting against and busting up. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly what I'm saying. All right, go ahead. That's
Let me play.
that's the part I was talking about. But go ahead. Yeah.
Let me play a little more.
Exchange, and give us a little bit of like the backstory of how we got to this place of Jake Tapper asking Reid Hoffman these questions.
Yeah, so the Biden administration has done, it's kind of mixed in a lot of ways. They've kind of continued the neoliberalism of the Democratic establishment, except in a couple of key areas: industrial policy, trade, and antitrust. So sort of taken on big corporations, kind of. And the main people in that, there's been a couple of regulators who've been the leaders in that. Lina Khan at the Federal Trade Commission is kind of the most famous one. And so you have a lot of anger from Wall Street and from Silicon Valley oligarchs about this, because they want to do their consolidation of corporate power. Reid Hoffman is a leader in this area. He was a founder of LinkedIn. He is actually part of a network called the PayPal Mafia. This is a bunch of billionaires in Silicon Valley that got their start at PayPal. This includes Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, and then there are some liberal ones. Reid Hoffman is the Democrat, and he is a big donor to the Democrats, longtime donor. And so what they're saying, they hated Biden because Biden was preventing them from consolidating power, which is what they really wanted. And so some of them moved to Trump, and some of them sort of participated in trying to push Biden out and now trying to kind of buy Kamala Harris. And that's what Reid Hoffman is doing. He gave a lot of money to Kamala Harris's super PAC, and they're trying to say, look, we love you. We think you're great. Push Lina Khan out, get rid of this new trade, industrial policy, tariff thing, and antitrust thing, and we can go on and return to the great days of Obama and Bill Clinton. And that's what this is really about.
And so how successful do you think that's being? How successful does that campaign look so far? Is she receptive to it? What have the leaks been like? I know you've been highlighting some Wall Street quotes. What do they think?
Yeah, so the Wall Street mergers guys and Silicon Valley oligarchs are super happy because they think that they own Kamala Harris, and they've been giving her orders. Her advisors are people like Aaron Dunn, who's a Google lawyer and a Qualcomm lawyer, is actually leading the case against the government on Google's monopolization claims. And she's also helping to prep Vice President Harris for debates. And then Tony West is one of her close advisors, also her brother-in-law. He's the general counsel of Uber. Her niece, Mina Harris, worked at, I believe, Uber and Slack and Facebook. There's this network of people that she knows and has are very close to big tech, very close to Wall Street. So I think there's a pretty good chance that she does get rid of the antitrust enforcers, that she does try to return us to a kind of neoliberal frame on trade. I mean, they think they own her. I don't think that's quite that stark, but I think they have a pretty good, she just kind of agrees with them, I think, in a lot of ways. And so the only question is, are the parts of the Democratic coalition that want more populism, are they going to stand up to her? They didn't stand up to Obama. Are they going to stand up to her? That's the only question.
Yeah.
So basically, she's in on that crowd. These oligarchs, these big tech folks. She's already in on that crowd. And like connected to them in multiple ways. So
she's been playing the game already.
Yeah, so she's a part of the group. So it would be surprising that she wouldn't, do what they want her to do. You know what I mean? If she was to get in there, it would be surprising for her to let some of the stuff go that they don't like, So I really don't see it going in any other direction. If she was to win, maybe she'll try to save face, but I really just don't see it going in any other way.
Did you hear about the meeting? The visit from one of the Google heads that says that, hey, we can go back to this controlling the people and using the technology. This is stuff straight from Google. They're trying to, use, the powers that they have and the controls they have through their products to control people and censor and all these different things. And that was like one of the big meetings, because now that I think about it, yeah, that something must have happened between them, because that meeting happened. I don't know if it was the actual DNC convention, the Democratic National Convention, because I know it's supposed to happen in August 19th, or I don't know, something like that. It was coming up, and it still may be coming up, where the actual party goes, where they announce her. But either way, they're conspiring against the people already with these systems that they have. And I don't know if it was because of Joe Biden or whatever, but they know that that type of thing will not exist with Trump because of his beliefs on censorship and freedom, nationalism, things like these different things. So that's what a lot of why they're trying to focus their their funds, their money towards Kamala, because of course they have a better chance of getting to where their monopolies exist and get stronger because of what she's will allow.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's true. I think that these people, they play both ends against the middle, and you're going to have some of them that's going to bet on Kamala, and then you're going to have some of them that's going to bet on Trump. So, but at the end of the day, they're going to get what they want, regardless if it's Trump or if it's Kamala.
But their system has to be cohesive with what they're trying to move politically. And if it doesn't, then like their bet is lost. So I mean, the whole idea that them not, them being a bigger donor, okay, they spend $1 million. Let's just say like this guy that spent $7 million with Kamala to try to get what he wants. Maybe he sent a check to, because I mean, to the Trump campaign as well, just to kind of be like, oh, we care, but they don't know that they have a bigger bet somewhere else.
Right. And they could do that through dark money. But also it's, it doesn't have to be the same person. It's his buddy, it's his friend, it's the other guy who's going to bet on Trump. You get what I'm saying? It'll be like, just say it's two guys and they have the same interests, right? They have the same thing that they want to get out of the administrations, like whatever it is, antitrust issues resolved. Let's say you have that. And so these two guys, and so one guy bets on Kamala and the other guy bets on Trump. And it doesn't matter who wins the election, they still win because they both are trying to get the same thing done. You understand what I'm saying?
I hear you. But at the same time, that's the things that they want to get done may not be possible based on the agenda because I mean, some money, all money is not good money. Everybody's not going to accept the same money. The donor may send this money, but who's going to pay the most attention to what this, each one of these donors are, trying to receive? That's the part that I'm saying that is going to be, I think that they know that they're going to get more attention from Kamala because of her liberalism. You know what I'm saying? Trump is not necessarily, think that way. And he like that will probably be like far on the back end of what he cares about and may never, and if it does get any attention, it's like very little.
I want to play some of this
as a
she is going in on Kamala. I don't know the timestamps. I wish I would have saved them, but I didn't. So I might have to skip through this a bit. But it says progressive rehabilitating Kamala's horrible record. So basically, they're trying to make Kamala look good for the progressives, and there's not much to support it. You know,
No.
other than some random things that she said when she was running for president,
You're
but
talking about
she
the lies, the stuff that she was saying, just so it look good.
right, because she totally flipped on a lot of that stuff immediately. So, but you know, again, that's what politicians do. Let me read this caption. It says, "Civil rights attorney, former public defender, and founder of Civil Rights Corps joins Bad Faith to discuss his new article, which exposes the massive disinformation campaign around policy body cameras, which has led liberals to embrace surveillance technology as progressive reform. He explains the evidence which exposes the true purpose of body cameras and addresses whether the recent on-camera murder of Sonia Massey complicates the argument. He then takes on a new trend rehabilitating Kamala Harris's criminal justice record now that she's a presumptive nominee. Were claims about her record overblown in 2020, or is she in fact a cop?" So, you know, and it has been a lot. I saw the guy from the radio show, I can't think of his name or whatever, and he was all like, "Yeah, I said that Kamala locked up thousands of black dudes or whatever, and I was wrong, and I'm here to say that I'm wrong and that I'm willing to support Kamala Harris for president, da 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 da." So you having a lot of folks doing that type of thing where they're saying, you know, it wasn't true. All of the stuff about Kamala being, you know,
Hateful little witch.
however you want to phrase that, saying that those things were not true, you know, and, you know, we're here to support Kamala now that she's got the nomination or whatever. We need to put all of that stuff to bed and, you know, get on board and support Kamala for her.
Well, the problem with that, I mean, of course, the American people may not have the power to go in and or the time to go in and do the research to be able to look up all of these different cases to be able to say this, that, or the third. But that information still exists. I mean, the state of California, I don't know. The state of California is a weird country, and or state, whatever you want to call it, that may be willing to try to hide those things, or, you know, make these things disappear so that record doesn't, you know, get actually seen. But for the most part, most people are not really looking for, they want to feel good about certain things. The truth doesn't necessarily matter. But if you make them feel good enough about the information that they're getting, they'll vote for that person, knowing the bullshit, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, but, you know, because all they need is a good excuse for them to, or, you know, something to hide behind so that they can say, well, yeah, I know that happened, blah, 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 but, and this is what I hear all the time. So, I mean,
the other thing they were talking about in this video is how they were saying like the body cameras was sold as a progressive idea when it really just benefits the police state. And that conversation was really interesting to me. I might do some of that. And they talked about the Sonia Massey shooting and related to that. But let me see. I think I want to do the Kamala stuff. I think it's right up in here. Hold on.
U.S. protest is directly taken from a consulting industry and a sort of military industrial complex that learned all of this stuff in Israel. Yeah,
he's still talking about the cameras. Hold on.
Not telling people the truth. You will not only be doing justice to yourself and have integrity, but people will respect that and trust it. And I think one of the big problems in our society is that politicians almost never tell the truth. The entire job of someone like Matt Miller at the State Department,
okay, hold on.
And they have been
described as like a very tightly interwoven relationship between policing here, policing abroad, what's happening in Palestine, and what's happening here in the United States of America?
That's a really hard question, and I don't purport to have any kind of objective answer. I can just give you some personal opinions. I think we're all struggling in these times to know what is right. My own view that I've arrived at after many years of struggling against these systems that are
Hold
One
on.
talks about Kamala Harris's.
Okay, here we
someone
go.
who cares about injustice in our society.
I mean, I think what's so frustrating, and to pick up on your descriptor Orwellian, is seeing. I mean, I'm looking at an article in Politico that's literally titled "Kamala the Cop Doesn't Sound So Bad in 2024." I saw someone else post kind of side-by-side articles, one from, the primary 2020 primary era and one from now. The primary one talks about Kamala Harris's criminal justice record and the critique she's gotten from justice advocates in California. And the contemporary one says something about how, she's not really a cop, actually. All of those claims were overblown. And seeing some of the same people make this revisionist argument is what's been so kind of jarring. Now, I can understand, even if I don't personally subscribe to an argument that says, I fully agree and continue to believe everything I felt about Kamala back in 2019, back in 2020. But I feel as though the threat to democracy is XYZ and she's the best candidate. We're going to have to defeat Trump. And so yada, 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 the same kind of like vote blue, no matter who arguments that have been made for everyone, including Joe Biden, even as he was perpetrating a genocide. But there does seem to be something else happening where people are saying or making the argument that the claims against her from the 2020 period were in fact overblown and were propaganda, that were even racist and sexist. And I do wonder how you feel about those criticisms now in retrospect. The what was it, Emily Bazelon article, or was it her sister? I always forget who wrote the article about her Laura Bazelon, apologies, to going through her record, not just in the kind of criminal justice, traditional criminal justice context, but also the failure to prosecute Steve Mnuchin for housing fraud. All of those kinds of things really did feel weighty and important at the time. Do you still feel like those were legitimate criticisms?
Absolutely, and they didn't go far enough. I mean, her record as a prosecutor is absolutely abhorrent in every way. And I've written about it as well. But I think it's really important to understand that people like Kamala Harris or Andrew Cuomo or any of these politicians, right? If they were from Alabama or Mississippi, they'd be Republican, most likely. They are kind of empty vessels. Most of the people who succeed in our political system at this moment are not people of great moral conviction who are, doing this. I'm speaking in broad, brushstrokes here, but they are responsive to power and to bases. And so if they had a base that were clamoring for, ending abortion or, any number of other, that's who they're beholden to. That's why it, I think, is a bad political strategy to be overly enamored with any politician.
So, I mean, they're kind of jumping around a bit, but it's the Kamala being not very progressive at all and trying to be sold as a progressive to the progressives, like saying that she's kind of far on the left when she's more like a center, let's say center left politician, kind of like in the same vein with Biden. And he made the comment that, if Kamala wasn't in California, she would have been a Republican. The California has some really conservative Democrats because the whole state is like Democrats. So it's like you have a spectrum within the Democrats of the ones that fall kind of on the left and the ones that kind of fall on the right. And so the idea of Kamala being the top cop from California, being the prosecutor, looks good for the people that are on the right. So it's like that's a selling point. The Democrats tend to, you know, they want to shave off votes from the right. Like they want to take some votes from Trump or whatever by saying stuff like, you know, Kamala was hard on crime when she was a district attorney or whatever. Like instead of placating to the left and getting those people who probably aren't going to vote, you know, or those people who, you know, are not going to vote for Trump for sure, who may be interested in voting for independent or whatever, they placate to the right. And the Democrats do this all the time where they're like, you know, we want to get those undecided voters, the ones that are thinking about voting for Trump or whatever. So, and that's what they do in this situation when they're saying that, you know, she was the top cop, da 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 da. But I feel like it's a failing strategy. I feel like they're missing. If they placated to the left, then they could get this huge block of voters over here, the ones that are frustrated with the politics that we're having now. And instead of trying to, those Trump voters are not going to switch over and vote for Kamala. Like that, I don't understand what strategy they have in mind, thinking that they're going to change someone's mind who is gonna, you know, who's planning on voting for Trump and trying to get them to switch over to Kamala. Like that's not gonna happen. There's no pool. If there's any, that's a very small pool of people. But you have a large pool of people on the left that you can attract to come back into the party who has been frustrated ever since Biden has been in there. So I don't, you know, but that's what they're doing. All of them, I'm seeing it all down my timeline where they're kind of revamping Kamala as this progressive. They're using the old quotes that she said when she was running for president and stuff like that. And then on the other hand, they're saying, you know, she's ultra conservative or whatever. Like she's really very center. She doesn't fall on the left. She's a neoliberal. Let me play a little more.
You should be doing, in my opinion, as a matter of political strategy, is figuring out what's important to you and your values, figuring out what kind of policies you want to be promoting, and then organizing around making those things, building power so that whoever is in office has to listen to that. That's why police unions are so powerful in most cities, no matter who's the mayor, right? The police union exercises an enormous amount of control over what happens because they have actual power. They have organized people. They have money, right? So the critical thing is building a base. And if you build a base and you have integrity and you know what issues you care about, and this is another reason why, you know, the resurgence of some of the auto worker unions is so important, right? If you build actual political bases, you're then in a position to demand from whoever's in power the things that you want. And so I think what makes Kamala different in these different eras is that she is responding to different bases at different times. So the reason she started talking more about progressive reform in 2020 is her perceived Democratic Party base had moved to the left. So Kamala moved to the left, right? That's really different. She ran to the right, from the right, as a prosecutor in San Francisco years prior, because she understood that that's what so politicians are, and I don't mean this even as a criticism of them, if they want to be successful politicians, they have to respond to a base. And so,
well, I think if anything, it's sounding like a criticism of the base. I mean, I hear you not necessarily wanting to draw that line, but I'll say it. I mean, my frustration is that to the extent that you believe that Kamala is more influenceable than Biden, that she has fewer of these ideological commitments to, say, being tough on crime or tough on Palestine or whatever it is, if you think that's the case, which again, I have some skepticism about, then that is an argument for pushing her, not saying, oh, I'm a brat now and putting a green filter on your profile, right? And I think your point, I know to me, it feels redundant to go back over this again because 2020 is still very fresh in my mind, but I appreciate that there are younger people in the audience and people who weren't, you know, paying as much attention during the primaries back then who would really benefit from revisiting some of the pieces that were written. I wrote a couple of pieces about whether or not there is a such thing as a progressive prosecutor at all, and what her career trajectory means about her actual values, especially given how she was brought up and who her parents were and all of those kinds of things. Lee Fong wrote a piece that detailed what you've described as her running to the right of San Francisco DA Tom Hannalan. He went to the library archives in San Francisco and found the flyers that she distributed for her first race that are straight out of a kind of a right-wing playbook. One I'm looking at right now has the torso of a man, a tan-ish man with a gun and gang signs and a tattoo that says "Enough is enough." Murder is up 30%. Skyrocketing rates of youth in jail. Another generation lost to gang violence. Who hears the cry for help? A new voice for justice. And one of them has a chalk outline on concrete saying an outline for disaster. Which district attorney has ranked last in convictions every year for the last 8 years? Trying to hit her opponent on not locking enough people up. I mean, this is who she is, or at least this is who she was when she was responsive to a certain kind of base. So if you want her to not be this kind of person, my argument would be to not be this kind of base and not pledge fealty to her without forcing her to have a real reckoning with her record.
I think that a lot of this right here makes it hard for the Trump campaign in attacking Kamala Harris, as far as trying to say she's so far on the left, because all of the evidence, there's not enough evidence to support that. And I think that that's the reason why they have to do these kind of like personal attacks on Kamala instead of attacking like policy types of stuff, and I think that that's going to be a problem for the Trump campaign. They're scrambling, trying to figure out how they're going to go at this. I'm sure they're going to figure something out, but as far as attacking putting her on the left is going to be difficult. So they've started off with these personal attacks. That's the way that they've been going now. I don't know that that's going to continue. So I'm sure that they're going to change gears once they, get their feet together with this campaign. So, but I think that this is a problem for them as far as the right-left argument. They can't say she wasn't like locking people up. They can't say she wasn't like tough on crime. I've seen the arguments about the border, but those don't really, they ring hollow. I just did a piece. I covered a story yesterday about how the border has been a lot lower. It's been dramatically lower in the amount of people that are trying to get asylum and so forth and so on. Even given that it's really close to the election and Biden made some moves that led to that result for the election, that still doesn't help the Trump campaign's arguments about Kamala and the border, because there's not any truth to it. There's nothing to support that.
You said there's no proof to support what's going on at the border?
No, what they're saying, I'm sure you've seen memes where they're like, Kamala was in charge of the border, or she was supposed to go to the border and she didn't, and we have, she didn't do what she was supposed to do, and we have an open border, and it's a caravan of 60 million. Some lady said 20 to 60 million people coming across the border and all of this. And there's no evidence to support that. And not only that, they have the numbers for a dramatic drop in July in the amount of people attempting to get asylum. I covered a piece yesterday showing that. They were interviewing people on the border. They were showing like they have these they have these facilities that help people, like, and house people and so forth that are, coming across the border trying to get asylum. And you have those camps, those that were made camps where they kind of just hang out right on the other side of the border, and they're like empty. So the Biden had a new policy that he implemented like a month ago or so, where it was like nobody can request asylum until the numbers go down to a certain level, and is maintained at that level for consecutive 2 or 3 months or whatever it was. And it had the intended effect.
So what about the other laws that was placed in there saying that if you didn't apply for asylum in any of the countries that you passed through before you got here, you're automatically turned around?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but they're not processing any asylum requests right now. And the word is getting out on that, and it has led to fewer people attempting to request asylum. So the numbers have dropped like dramatically. So the Kamala border thing is nothing, and then the personal attacks on her is not going to move people to like not vote for her or whatever. Like, that doesn't have it rings hollow is basically what I'm saying. I'm getting tired. I ain't gonna lie. I'm kind of all over the place, and I gotta work in the morning. I normally don't work on Monday mornings, and they changed my schedule. Well, that's kind of got me messed up right now. And I didn't even get to what I wanted to get to. I'm probably gonna have to do a early show next week.
Okay, I thought you was gonna say tomorrow, but 'cause I don't
Thank
know if
I gotta do.
outside of tomorrow, I don't know if I'll be able to jump in or not. But we'll see. What if? Yeah,
If I do it, it would have to be Wednesday, like during the daytime.
All right. Well, yeah,
So
just check with me because I might be able to come on depending on how things go at work.
yeah, so like before we get out of here, what do you want to say about the Kamala Trump deal we got going on?
Well, I mean, I guess it's not much more than what we're already hearing in various media sources. I mean, me personally, I'm waiting to still really hear what it is that Kamala is trying to offer the people. Why, her reasons for us to vote for her, other than that Trump bad guy. Like I'm really, and but like I said, even though we've been getting some of that Kamala, evil Kamala this, Kamala that, he has, offered the people different things, like things that, I think is that, and things that people actually want personally, not things that'll eventually get to us. If we do this, then, you'll benefit from it, at some point. No, things that helps people directly. And that's one of the things why I think that, Trump is a lot more my guy. I said I do like like RFK, but like I said, he's not really a part of the conversation so much. But Kamala, I think she really, in order for her to get more momentum, to really get to where she can you know, these polls, these made up polls, these things that don't matter. You know, if you believe in the polls, you're just, you know, getting your feelings hurt on a long term. But she's really needs to, you know, decide what she's gonna do, and hopefully stick to it. What she's gonna do, because I mean, look, I don't have a problem with her personally. It's all business as far as I'm concerned. You know, what I think is going to be beneficial for me and my family, and you know, those, you know, near close to me or whatever. But I I, I never thought she really had it personally. This is, you know, and I don't think she has it now. Like, them pushing her to this point, like they're using these identity politics to try to, you know, gain, you know, to get the momentum that they have now. And it's really sickening to me, because it's like, you know, is that what they really think about us? That we're, you know, hey, you know, more symbolism, and you know, your first woman president. Oh no, your first. No, let's cut it out. She's not black. We might have a first white. I mean, a first female president, but at the same, well, it's not. She's not black. But that's the things that they're using. Like I said, that type of stuff disgusts me. It's just nasty. And hopefully, if she wants to become president, she'll get to the point where, and I said the same thing about Trump, like as far as trying to, you know, talk bad about her is not necessarily, you know, attractive, but it's funny. A lot of it has been somewhat kind of entertaining, but for the most part, he does get down to it and say, "Hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm gonna, you know, like, no, you know, no more taxing elderly on Social Security, you know, doing, you know, what's that, you know, of course, the tips for the, you know, things on taxes for tips for people in the, I guess, the service industry, ending certain wars, you know, different things that he plans on changing so that we can build as a country, trying to get manufacturing jobs back here so that we can grow
Yeah,
as a country.
I hope he keeps his word on some of those things if he wins.
I hope he keeps his word on all of them. And I think, you know, that's one of the things that's people are going to definitely hold his feet to the fire. But that's the whole thing, you know, the difference in that is that they will try to make sure he does what he says he's going to do. But there's too many people who's willing to be like, well, she's a woman. You know, they'll make excuse, you know, and I'm saying that because I mean, I think women are strong people. They're probably stronger than men. But the thing is that, you know, when it's about some bullshit, a lot of times they will find, you know, the media helps the people come up with their reasons for why they shouldn't expect much from their candidate. And that's just bullshit to me.
So it says right here, it says Harris formally secures Democratic nomination. She's the first woman of color to lead a presidential ticket. Washington Post, it says Vice President Kamala Harris has secured a majority of pledged delegates to the 2024 Democratic National Convention. Democratic Party officials announced Friday, officially making her the party's presidential nominee and concluding an unprecedented process after President Biden dropped out less than 2 weeks ago. It says the more than 4,000 convention delegates had until Monday to submit their ballots, but no other candidate qualified to challenge Harris, making her selection all but certain. Still, the formal nomination ascent of the first woman of color to lead a presidential ticket marks a milestone for a nation long divided by racial and gender issues. Harris becomes just the second person of color in America's nearly 250-year history to head a major presidential ticket after Barack Obama in 2008.
They did say person of color, so I guess she is that.
Yeah.
But
this,
look, overall, I think most of us, all of us, do want the best for the country, but I think there's some very important things that we should not overlook. And if we want to continue, because maybe I'm because I'm not afraid of change. I'm all for change. We have to make change, but there are things that I think that if we go too far with change, there's going to be something that we can't turn back from. At some point, if we go too far, we're not going to be able to come back from it. And like I said, that's why the whole globalist approach for our politics, like, I don't think there's anything, I don't think we have to come to a one world government for us to have the approach where we can be, a strong country that can still, involve itself and help in those places. We should allow people to have their their sovereignty, just like we want our own. And I think trying to run the entire world when we're barely running our own country is insane. So those are some things that I think that we should continue with a nationalist approach, be proud to have our region and do the best that we can, and hopefully be good global citizens, as far as being our humanity, as far as how we stretch around the world. But as far as us trying to combine those things, I think we lose more, because we can extend our resources as much as we say that we want to, instead of it all being handed over to whoever is the leader of that one world government, which is I think it's insane. I think I don't like it. I don't think that it's going to be beneficial to us as a people. So, and I think that's some of the stuff that Kamala is looking toward, because she said she's a South Indian. Her alliance to America isn't as strong as people may think. And yes, we are a country of immigrants, but why is it that the people who have always been who give full credence to the life that they live to being an American never really is in this position? I just don't get it. But anyhow,
I'm gonna have to get out of here because I gotta go to work in the morning. So that's why I was kind of distracted too, and I didn't feel good about this, or I wasn't very organized. I came in right after work, so apologies to the audience. I apologize. But anyways, peace and love. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for listening. I got to get up out of here.
Well, deuces. See everybody next time.
All right.
Peace.